Welcome back, everyone, to another Uncanny Mystic Minds. So we got Joe, the mystical rebel, back in today. What's up, bro? How's it going?
What is going on, Louie? Thanks for having me back, brother. Glad
Oh
to
yeah,
be back.
dude.
Glad
Yeah,
to be
thanks
back
for
in the
coming on.
studio.
Yeah, happy Friday. Freaking hope your weekend is
Yeah, man. Happy Friday.
starting off to a good start and all that. Well, so it's like Super Bowl weekend because like relatives have been inviting me to see if I want to come over and stuff like that. And man, I mean, geez, it's funny. I'm just not in the place. I guess the last couple years I've like tapped out
Oh, wow.
from like these things. Like I used to play like the fantasy football, like and do all this homework and know what's going on in the league and
Yeah.
this shit. And he made a trade over here. Oh, he's going to Buffalo and like all these things, and then and then now I'm kind of how I've always been a little bit, kind of like a little bit on the outskirts in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, not like super bad, but like they still love me, but I'm just not really like, I'm just not really like, I didn't go to any games this year, where like back in the day, I used to go to like almost all the games, like the home games. And so, yeah, I mean,
I'm not really into sports, but I'll be going to a few Super Bowl parties. But I'm not into the sports thing. But I'll be going.
yeah, because this is the one time where there's going to be like fat parties or like get-togethers, and you know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, well, all of my friends are into sports. I'm like the only one who's into like esoteric stuff. So, I mean, I'll join them, but it's not something that I personally am into.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is, huh? Is that what it is? Like, where it just kind of makes you kind of like an odd man out because I'm like cool with people like that, but they're like really into it. They're like really dedicated, and then I don't know. And then like it's funny because I guess it kind of gives me the thought or like the analogy of like drinking alcohol. Like when I've taken breaks from drinking alcohol, like say after like almost a year of not drinking, and then you see like how society, how everything like revolves around that, like all the going out and all the the perks that like that like draw you in. Yeah, like these drawing in perks, it's revolved around that super much.
It is,
yeah. And then so after taking a break from like the sports, how I did, like I was watching ESPN every morning, keeping up with all this shit and all the news and blah blah blah. And then once I broke out of that, I'm just like, oh my God, like I've been like using way too much of my brain on this shit, like my analytical brain. Like, why was I overloading it with all this shit when it's not even like making you, like it's not making you money how you think, and then it's not being appreciated how you think. It's like, oh man, so I don't know. So I kind of politely declined the Super Bowl parties, but yeah, yeah. But
yeah, I get that.
Yeah. I guess maybe just the occultic shit. Like you get into different stuff. Like you have just different hobbies that are really your shit. So you just what you're about, and then so you're not gonna start dipping and dabbing on some other stuff because you just probably don't have the investment, for this. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I've never really been into sports. I'm more into the creative side of things. So like filmmaking or dance and things like that. I'm not really into sports or any like physical activity or anything like that. Yeah, I'm more into the creative side or like the arts.
Yeah, hell yeah, I'm an arts guy too, for sure. Very art. In my way, for sure. I love that. Yeah, man. I'm like seeing like it's like lately I've been getting the lessons of like it's all about what you want to like invest your time in. Like that's like super crucial. Like it's like a big privilege in a sense, because some people like around the world who maybe don't have like certain privileges, like maybe like life is really tough for them. They don't have the thought or the option of like, oh, like I can invest my thoughts on learning about this, and you know what I mean, like because they like maybe they just have to really work hella hard just to barely do some stuff, and that's like a harsh reality, but it's a part of the reality. And so I don't know, it's like a privilege to be able to pick what you want to dive into, and then because we know that you become like a growing product of this, and then
that's
so
true.
a lot of it can happen from that.
That's very true, man.
Yeah. So I'm counting my blessings, and like I'm being more like more thoughtful on what I am investing in, because I'm like, okay, whatever you invest in, make sure you're really investing in this. Because apparently, like I've been learning because of these lessons. I'm like, oh, like I've had like commitment phobia shit, like commitment issues. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be just in a relationship. I mean, relationship for sure, you know, like that counts obviously, but just in general, you know what I mean? To commit to really commit to something. And so yeah, I've been wrapping my head around this and like how much of a privilege it is, you know, because the more you invest in something, the harder it, like that thing will pay off, you know. So
of course, yeah,
you know.
of course, you gotta put the time in, gotta put the time in and the work into something in order to get anything out of it.
Yeah, and I'm feeling the appreciation of all that stuff, of like how the things come back around, like the investment should come back around, you know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I've been feeling lately, but yeah. But anyway, so I want to talk about first cleansing. You know,
Okay.
there's like different ways to cleanse. You know, and then so I guess besides talking about like some different ways, I'd like to know your take on like I guess like the etiquette of cleansing. Like, is there like a etiquette like protocols that you happen to like, or do you think it even matters? Like in a sense, or like what do you think about that? Like,
Yeah, so cleansing is usually a technique that follows banishing. Not always. If you don't have anything to banish, if there's no negative energies to banish, cleansing usually takes something and makes it sacred or makes it hallowed, or makes it clean in a spiritual sense, which therefore makes it sacred or pure. Whereas banishing is just the removal of the negative entity or energies or whatever. So the etiquette is if if it follows a banishing, what you generally want to do is after the banishing is done, you then want to sort of invoke some sort of benefic energy or entity or whatever in order to fill that space that the negative energies was once in. Excuse me. And from there, you would then dedicate that space to whatever the purpose that you're about to use it for or going to be using it for. If it's something that you're doing early on for like a week-long ritual or something like that, you want to dedicate that space and the energy in that space to focus on that task, whatever it is. So the evocation of a spirit or your knowledge and conversation with your holy guardian angel or some sort of initiation or whatever, you would want the energy of that place to sort of match and mirror whatever work that you're going to be doing, so that way that energy can facilitate whatever process you're going to be doing. So cleansing is really just a ritualistic process to make something pure or to dedicate a space to a certain task or to a certain working, generally temporarily. You generally have to banish and or cleanse. Depending on how often you do work, everything from every few days to weekly. I do mine weekly. So it just depends on how often you're doing any sort of working. But yeah, that is what I would say would be the etiquette for cleansing.
okay. So like do you have like a cleansing ritual or like some kind of cleansing deal that you do like every morning, or like or do you do like some like is there something that you do like every morning type of thing? Or
Well, so there are rituals that I do every day, yes, but not cleansing. Most
okay.
of what I do every day is just like ancestor veneration, and then I venerate the seven governors or the planets, being that I'm a hermeticist, and then I venerate God. So I work from Earth up through the spheres back to God. The cleansing ritual, yes, I do have a specific ritual that I use to banish and cleanse. It comes from the Book of Abraxas right here.
The Book of
And it,
Abraxas. Whoa.
yeah, by Michael Chittatelli from
Oh, yeah.
Nephilim Press.
Wow.
Yeah, so the ritual to banish first would be the adjuration of Metatron, which is right here. This ritual, the adjuration of Metatron. This is the banishing ritual. And then to sort of uh, invoke benefic energies or something like that, I would do either the calling and or the greater calling of the sevenths, and then depending on how I'm feeling, the rite of Jew.
What does that stand for? The Jew.
Jew, Jeu. It's a Gnostic, or it's a sort of like a Gnostic luminary or deity, if you will. It calls it, so it uses the calling of the seventh, and then certain sacred names of God to invoke benefic energies into your ritual space.
Sick.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. Yeah. When you busted out that book, there's something about Abraxas I have a thing for sure.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah. Because the Abraxas, isn't Abraxas like the demiurge?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I don't believe they would consider him a creator deity. More along the lines of like I guess more like a Thoth or like a Hermes type of a thing. More than anything
Abraxas
else
would be Abraxas.
Yeah, because this is what Abraxas would have looked like, or what his statues and things like that sort of look like. Whereas the demiurge is usually depicted as like a lion head,
the lion,
on like a dragon or something, or like a long serpent or something like that.
Yeah, like a lion
and he has a lion head.
Lion head with the bottom snaky or something.
That would be more of a
I
guess
I confused. The lion head. Well, I have a thing for the demiurge, but I also I like it when I see that one with the rooster. That's supposed to be a rooster, right?
I believe so. Yeah. I'm not too familiar with the origins of Abraxas, but it looks to me like a rooster with the body of a man and the feet or legs of snakes, serpents.
So, kind of like some type of bird, I guess. So that's kind of why when you were saying like Hermes, it might be kind of like Thoth, like bird. I guess
the ibis head,
Okay.
Or ibis, however you say it, ibis.
That
stork bird,
that's where the moon kind of reminds me of like a crescenty moon, where you get that aspect and that tie or whatever. Oh, that's cool, man. Wow.
Yeah, dude.
Freaking so I guess I'd like to know about energy manipulation, because I know you be talking about like it's important about raising it and being able to manipulate it as such, because it's pretty key. I guess it's like before it makes sense that before you start getting into these more heavy duty things, I mean, it seems basic, but it's really at the same time it's like not. It's like easier said than done to manipulate energy, but that's like
true.
I have like a fondness for sure for this. So I guess tell me a little bit about the importance of this, to make sure you're getting started. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Just give me 1 second. I'm gonna let my dog out of the office.
Yeah. We'll let the dogs out.
Sitting at the door. So one.
Oh yeah. Take your time, dude. It's all good. Sponsored by Hard Kombucha. This is the good stuff. Who needs beer when you got Hard Kombucha? All right, I better get paid for that. Well, it's Friday night, so apparently that's how we're doing it today. So,
all right. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
Okay, so yes, the importance of raising, directing, and releasing energy, and also should probably throw in sensing energy into that. There's no point on raising anything and directing it if you can't sense it. So the importance of that comes into play at the very beginning of your occult career, because the successful manipulation of energy is the foundation. It's the base of successful spell casting or ritual work. If you cannot raise, direct, and release energy, you can bet that 95, if not more, % of your spells are not going to work. because that's the fuel that allows a spell to go, right? You can buy a car, but if there's no gas in your car, you know, assuming you don't have a Tesla or something like that, if there's no gas in your car, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So the energies are sort of gasoline or the fuel that makes the spell go and work. So one would have to know how to not only raise, direct, and release that energy, but also sense that energy. Because you need something to be able to raise, direct, and release. So it starts with the sensing of energy. Once you can sense energy, or if you know how to sense energy, then you can begin raising it. And there are multiple ways to raise it. You can do something as simple as meditating and visualizing, but that's the hardest way. That's the way that most people want to go because it's the easiest way, because it doesn't require too much work, but it's also the hardest way. You can also like do things like ritual dancing, ritual drumming. You can do what I do. I do vibrating sacred names and chanting sacred names of God. I use a technique that's used in necrosophic traditions. I don't have a rosary bead, so I use like snaps. But essentially, what I'll do is I'll recite the sacred names of God, and I'll snap on every time I say it, so that way I can sort of like have a mental count of how many I'm doing. And after a certain number of repetition, you begin to fall into a trance state and things like that. And that's when you begin to raise that energy. So there's multiple ways to do it. And then
cool.
and then once the energy is raised, now you have to direct that energy towards whatever goal you have. So whether it's a love spell, a money spell, a protection spell, a healing spell, trying to summon a spirit, whatever, you need to be able to know how to take that energy that you just raised and how to ritualistically direct it. So you have to sort of program it, if you will, towards your goal. And then you have to know how to release that energy out into the universe to actually go and do your work. Wow. So yeah, that would be the importance of the manipulation of energy for spellcasting and ritual work.
Wow. That's see, it's like at first, like when I was talking about it initially, it's kind of like, okay, like foundational stuff, and it's almost like people could overlook this. And then if you really just dissect what the hell you just said and like pause each main sentence, each one is fucking intense, especially like the one where you just said the last part about the final part about like letting it out, kind of like, you know what I mean, like to do the deed type of thing. That's some intense shit. Like you have to really be honed in with your I guess like your vision and stuff like that, and be able to make your vision out. Like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, creative visualization and things like that certainly help. And if you have issues with doing that, I won't go as far as saying if you can't do it, then you're absolutely going to fail. I'm sure that there are plenty of accomplished, witches and magicians out there that maybe don't have a really good imagination and really can't visualize. There is that. I don't know if it's a disorder or like a disease or something. I don't want to, mislabel it. But I know that there is a thing out there where there are people out there who can't, like, they don't have a mind's eye. They can't see things in their head. If they close their eyes and you say, picture a beach, they just can't. Yeah. So I do understand that those people exist. And I'm sure that there are plenty of those people out there who practice magic and are very successful. But visualization and creative visualization and, being able to see things in your mind's eye is extremely, extremely helpful in the occult.
Yeah, like, do you think it has something to do with like calcified pineal glands? Like for the people that it's very hard for them to feel like have like this type of vision, like the beyond kind of vision. Do you think it has anything to do with that?
I don't know. I don't put that much emphasis on the pineal gland itself. I really don't know if the pineal gland has really anything to do with the third eye. Even though it's in the same spot and things like that, the gland itself, like the actual organ, I'm not sure if that really has anything to do with the third eye. Mainly because I can't say if every single time we're using our third eye, if that substance, I forget what it's called at the moment, gets secreted every
Yeah, the
single time.
secretion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
probably more like an energetic thing then, right? It's
yeah,
probably more energetic than not, like
yeah.
more energy wise. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Um, Also, because there are other names for it other than the pineal gland or other than the third eye. There's spirit vision, there's tatwa vision, and things like that that have nothing really to, like, they don't mention the pineal gland. Then, like, when you're learning tatwa vision, unless you're learning it from the West, which is not where it comes from the East. Unless you're learning it from the West, they don't even mention pineal gland. It's just opening your tatwa vision, which essentially is your third eye, but there's no mention of any sort of glands or anything
Pineal
like
gland
that.
was like a pineal gland must have been like a Western thing then, huh? That was probably more later or some shit, right? Like,
Well, no, I mean, no, it's identified in Egyptian writings and Babylonian writings and things like that. But aside from like the popular images that everyone knows about it, it's not like it was talked about. Like, I mean, in all of my Hermetic texts, there's no mention of the pineal gland. There's no mention of, decalcifying anything, or, that being the gateway to the gods or anything like that. And Hermeticism comes from ancient Egypt and ancient Greece when they sort of came together and created Greco-Egyptian society. So I don't know. For me personally, the jury is still out on how important the pineal gland is.
yeah. Did you ever see like those like I'm not sure if they were it was probably like on that ancient alien shit where like they had the Anunnaki dude with like holding the little pine cone, like
Yeah.
with the little beak and all that.
Yeah.
I saw that in LA when I went to Hollywood a couple years back. I remember seeing they had like this, they had built like this little like a little I don't know what you call it, but it was like in the shape of like half a little dome, and then they had the picture in there with like that famous picture. It was really
Wow.
big too, and it was like in a focal point of Hollywood. And I was like, "Look at this shit," you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I was like,
So part of my content is about debunking a lot of the conspiracies that Hollywood or that people associate Hollywood when it comes to the occult. Now that I work in marketing, I believe this a lot more because I'm a marketer, so I understand what it takes to get people to buy things or to see things your way or whatever. I truly do believe a lot of the occult stuff in Hollywood is all just marketing. They realized that people believe in this Illuminati, and they believe that when a celebrity does a little thing like this or like this, and I'm probably going to get a bunch of nonsense for doing all these symbols, that it has some esoteric or grand meaning. And so they start doing it all the time because it keeps them relevant. It keeps their names on the lips of people. It keeps them in the media.
yeah,
It keeps them, it has them go
edgy.
viral.
Yeah, you're like edgy, and then if you're edgy,
Yeah,
you're hot. Yeah, you're like the hot. You're like you're still relevant or like or something
exactly.
like that. Yeah, yeah. No, it was interesting because was it this morning? I heard my boy, the NY Patriot, one of my podcasting friends, and he had this lady from the Occult Unveiled podcast, and
Okay.
she's pretty deep in her game. She's yeah, and she has her ties. She works in Hollywood, and she's like she had stuff to do. Like, remember that show on MTV, Ridiculousness, with Rob Dyrdek?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
she was in that. She was a part of that shit, So
Oh wow.
she's like
Okay.
she's in that world. And then a big takeaway that they were talking about in their podcast today that I listened to this morning was like it's not really like kind of how what you're saying, like they know what it takes, and then she says that whatever gets the eyes on them, like even if it's not thing, you know what I mean? And then so it was kind of like alluding to that because Teresa, like the co-host, asked her like, oh, like is there other people like in Hollywood who are kind of like super occultic like this and this and that? And she kind of was basically saying her answer was kind of like, no, I'm kind of like the weirdest one, meaning it's not really like that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
like,
I mean, I'm sure so there are people in Hollywood who do practice the occult. Azalea Banks is a well-known witch, and she's open about it. She's shown off her altars, her animal sacrifices. In October, I think, the singer Kaylani, who is with Big Sean, I think, or no. But that's not important. Anyway, the singer Kehlani, the R&B singer Kehlani, she just got crowned in Santeria. She posted all over Instagram her ceremony, all of the offerings to all the Orisha and everything like that. And I think it's still available. Like if you go to her Instagram page back in October, it's still there. She was crowned in Santeria. Well, I'm not sure if they call it crowned. So I'll say she was initiated into
a form of initiation.
Yeah.
That's
in
wow.
Santeria. So there are people in Hollywood who are involved in the occult, but it's nowhere near what the conspiracy theorists want you to believe, where it's every single person.
Yeah.
And they're all worshiping the devil and drinking baby juice and all this other nonsense. It's
like the far fetchy type of stuff. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, no, that Santeria is interesting too. You know, I'm looking to get a Santeria practitioner, you know, here, you know, to talk and stuff. And
nice, dude. Yeah, man.
Yeah. You know, like what is it? That rapper Be Real from Cypress Hill. He's into Santeria, I believe.
Really, I did not know that. I was not aware of that.
What's the other one? God, it's the Cuban one. Is that or is there one with the Oshun? Or it's like Cuban?
Santeria is Cuban.
Okay, so I think it's that one then. Yeah. I just didn't want to mess it up, but yeah. And then this other guy, God, what's his name? Ezone, who's like a kind of a somewhat famous podcaster, YouTuber. They're like God, like they call each other God brothers through that religion, and so he's also.
Oh yeah, he's also they're definitely involved.
Also in that, he's also in that, and then so. Yeah, and then like there's some. I mean, they're. I mean, in my opinion, you know, I mean, I can gauge people pretty good, and I mean, in my opinion, I mean they're fairly lit, like lit people. I guess if I could say that's kind of like they have a lot inside of them, and they're lit, and so I don't know. That's kind of what I see.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah,
and it's funny that you say that because they a lot of the spirits that are worked with in the ATRs and the ADRs are considered hot, and not hot as in like sexy. Hot as in like they're like very fiery. They're very willful. They're very passionate. They're very determinate, and in some cases, very easy to anger. So it's interesting that you describe them as being lit. Because they do deal with very fiery spirits.
Yeah, that's funny because I never really. That's just the word that came out, but that's kind of like a simple way to try to break kind of the gist, because some people, once they heard about that, I'm sure some people are probably like, oh, like, is this how you got in here? And I mean, who knows? Like maybe I don't know. I mean, it's like leverage, right? Like
yes, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of leverage, I know you've brought it up before too. It reminds me of your video game analogy of like. I remember you saying that like there's no guarantees type of shit. Like people think that because you do something, okay, well, if I do a money spell, where's my $1 million? You know what I mean? Like that type of thing. It's like if it was like that, I'd be like, we'd all be
rich. We'd all be super billionaires.
Yeah. So like, what's your your analogy on that? Like on how that shit works? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so if I recall correctly, I think I used that analogy when I was discussing occult correspondences, which is step 2 in my 5 steps for beginners to start practicing magic. Step 2 is occult correspondences. Step 1 would have been the energy manipulation. So we already talked about that. Step 2 is occult correspondences. So understanding things like the daily correspondences, the planetary correspondences, the elemental correspondences, tarot correspondences, herbal correspondences, so on and so forth. These are the things that have sympathy or attributes based on what you are doing. So for example, if you're doing a love spell, you're free to do the love spell on whatever day you want to do it, at whatever time you want to do it. But if you want to have an added booster, an added perk, an added benefit, doing it on a Friday, which is the day of Venus, who is the planet of love, and in the hour of Venus will give you an added bonus. It's like extra energy for your working to come about and be successful. So understanding what days are best to do certain magics on, understanding under what planetary auspices or what astrological auspices and timings is something good for, understanding, what tarot card, because tarot can be used in spellcasting and magic, represents you or, your client or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Understanding what what herbs or stones can help out, and not just understanding these things, but understanding what they are, how they work, and why they are important is what will separate you from just the average dabbler or something along those lines. So that's where I sort of use the video game analogy with the boosters and the perks, with the correspondences, learning which of those is best for your working, and then doing it on that day, under that planet, in that hour, with those herbs, whatever, to get those added perks, those added benefits, just like in a video game.
Yeah, like an enhancer type of a thing, right?
Yeah,
like if you were gonna, I guess I'm thinking about like when you play like those card games, like whether you're at an arcade, where you're actually in the thing or whatever, and like how in the beginning it gives you options like you have $50,000. Do you want to use it on these tires, or do you want to use it like
speed?
Or like a nitro switch, or do you want to use it for like a six steering? You know what I mean? So everyone gets to pick like how they want to like get their edge.
Exactly. It's an edge. It's not a guarantee. Just because you get the nitro, or just because you get the added handling, or better grip tires or whatever, doesn't guarantee that you're going to win. Yeah. But it gives you that extra edge.
Yeah.
That might help you win.
Yeah. And the more you invest in the edge, like the more time and energy you invest in it, of like, that's why like with the correspondent thing, like it's like what comes to mind for me is like, it's very intentional. Like you're super intentional. Yes. So then the more intentional you are, in a sense, the more kind of like focused you are. Right. Exactly. And then so that'll correlate with the edge, with the type of edge that you're going for, that you will get, I guess. And so that's sick, man. Yeah. I think about poker with that shit a lot, because there's one guy that I listen to. He's a YouTuber, but he's a somewhat famous guy. His name is Nathan Williams, Black Rain 79. But he talks about like a lot of prepping, like just before, like before any session, like you're prepping your whole mindset. You're prepping like whether meditation, or then you go to the gym, you get your energy going, you let out all the stress, you get your endorphins, you like good eating food, so you don't eat crappy food like with sugar, so you start crashing later on, like all these little edges. And it's very intentional, and then to be very zen and confident, so then when you do go out there, you're maxed out at your edge, and then you can kind of rein it in from there, it's, I guess it's, there's different practical things for that. I guess real quick to backtrack on the like the raising your vibration thing, I think about like for me, a little experience I had a couple weeks ago when I was doing some stuff. I guess I noticed at the end of it, I couldn't believe how much breathing was like my main thing. Like that was like, for me, it was like my main, like how I could harness my power the best. And then I was doing all types of breathing, like all types of like heavy breathing, like intense breathing, where I was getting so much air in me. And then and then I was also doing stuff at different points where I would like hold my breath for like a very long time. And then when I would finish like stuff, I would like release my breath. Like, I don't know, like it kind of gives you like this high. And then how I describe it, it's almost like I could see like in a darkness. It's almost like I had my eyes open, but it's almost like I had like my eyes closed in a way. Like it was almost like I could see it as if the room was dark. Like I had that kind of senses where I could catch something. Like imagine if I was in dark, but I could still catch it. That was like the senses that came over me after using my breath for a while. And so I don't know. I just thought that was kind of cool. And then I also when you were mentioning the part about like saying names or like vibrating names and stuff like that. It's like super important. I think like the throat is like super magical, I guess, because it's like you get all the sound and vibration.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and so I noticed I would do like these like hummy type of things, like it sounded kind of like music in a way, but or like tones, I guess, like tones. Yeah. So
yeah. So tones and vocal frequencies are extremely important. And if you can speak the native language, which I don't, so I use Latinized Romance or Romanized pronunciations and things like that. But if you can speak the native tongue and vibrate in that, that produces way better effects than any sort of modern day rendition. But it's funny that you mentioned the throat, because the throat chakra actually has how do I want to say this, uses that people outside of maybe Western esoteric, and maybe even within Western esotericism, people might not know this if you're new to it, or you don't really go deep into your studies. The throat chakra is actually the point of projection when it comes to astral projection and lucid dreaming. In Western magic, we teach that the point of projection happens, or the light body or the astral body detaches at the throat. So when we learn to when we learn astral projection, it starts at the throat chakra. There's an awesome technique that I have where for people who want to learn how to astral project, where it starts with you lie on your bed and you or lie wherever, and you envision a blue ball in your throat, and you just envision it getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it envelops you, and that's almost literally about it.
You'll that's even giving me a feeling right now. Oh, that's sick, dude.
And if you can do it, if you can time it right, because you're supposed to do it before you go to bed. So if you can time it right, by the time it covers your entire body, you should be at the point of falling asleep. And that is when you should project outwards. Wow. And so, yeah, it's the throat chakra is has a lot more uses than just vocalizing and producing tones and frequencies and things like that.
It's so sick.
Yeah,
because that's like I feel like it's definitely a gateway on top of that, of like to get to like that trancey type of a mode. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's funny, dude. I would have lost money on that bet. Like if you were to ask me like through where would you bust out astrally, I would have guessed
what chakra.
I would have guessed one of the higher,
the crown chakra, most likely, yeah.
Or here, you know what I mean? Like either here or like up higher. I would have guessed higher. But if you think about it, I'm like thinking about it. Imagine when you say like off with his head, like where's our sensitive spot? Where's our vulnerable spot? It's right here. It's very vulnerable. And if you're going to chop someone's head off, like that's where you go.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah. So I'm learning. So like, I guess, what would you consider like important things for people who are getting like kind of like learning about this stuff like me, like, what do you consider important factors for like a ritual or like staple things or like, bread and butter things that are involved in a ritual? Like, what would you consider these things?
Sure. Actually, I have it written down from one of my early videos. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, take your time, dude.
All right. So a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, when I first started making content on TikTok, one of my very first videos that went viral, and one of my very first live streams that got more than just like 10 people was about how to do magic. And sorry for the handwriting; it's pretty bad.
No, but, you're good, bro.
So there are 5 steps here, but this is different than my 5 steps on how to get started with magic. This is how to do magic.
Right. I've never seen this before. Yeah, this is a whole different setup.
Yeah. So essentially, what I would say for someone who is about to do a spell or a ritual, these are the common items that you're going, or the common things that you're going to find in most workings. Not all workings, not every single working, especially as you talk about different systems and traditions, things change. But in general, here in the West, in witchcraft and grimoire tradition, in hoodoo, these are things that you're going to find in most. So the first is intent. You obviously need to have an intent for your spell or your ritual. It shouldn't be just doing random things randomly. You should have an intent, and you should have an intention for that spell or that ritual to be successful, no matter what it is. Even if it's something negative, you're trying to curse or harm someone, you should have an intention that that spell is going to work. So intent is certainly necessary, but it's not the be all end all like the New Agers want you to believe, but it's certainly necessary.
As long as you intend it, they will find you, and it will all come true. You don't have to ever think about it ever again, and your work is done. You just gotta dust your hands off and walk off in the sunset, baby.
Yep, just wish it and it'll happen. Yeah. That's the New Age mantra. Second would be the materia magica, or the magical tools, the magical items. So things. So tools. Depending on who you talk to, some people say that tools are 100% not needed, and then some people say that tools are 100% needed, and then there's people who are in the middle. I lean more towards tools are needed, at least until you've mastered the reason for the tool, and you can properly substitute that tool, even if it's with something symbolic or even energetic. But that comes after mastery. Until you reach mastery, I believe that tools for the most part are needed. Perfect example are the planetary seals, which I have right here. So these are my planetary seals.
Wow.
So how would you, if you were going to get in touch with, saying, Raphael for Mercury, Raphael, how would you remove this seal and contact Raphael without that, right? How would you be able to get in touch with the Archangel Raphael without any sort of tool or item that would be attributed to Raphael? Now, of course, the New Ager will say, well, I just tap into his energy. Well, spirits can lie, and spirits do lie, especially if you're going to believe them and give them what they ask for. So if a spirit can interject himself into your ritual and tell you that he is Raphael, and you're not going to verify, you're just going to believe him because he says he is Raphael, the energy seems right, then you're going to be in for a very interesting experience going forward. So materia magica, or the magical tools.
That's sick. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. A lot of times, or the other one will be, oh, well, you just do it just through your mind is all you need. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I'm a humongous advocate. I mean, dude, fucking minds is in the name of my freaking podcast. So like, I'm a huge mind person. Like, I love the power of the mind. I believe it's super duper powerful, especially for I think someone like me who's like an airy person or something like that. So for me, it's very relevant. But at the same time, it's like, dude, like, think about it. Imagine you're going somewhere like a destination. How are you going to go there without an address? You know what I mean? Especially the first time. Like, you probably want a formal address of like a paper of like, or like the direct address and the number. And then after you've gone there, like imagine you live in a whole different city. Like, how are you going to just drive there and remember it the first time? You might need it for several times. And then after you master it, then you can start to go there. You know what I mean? Like without the direction. Yeah.
Perfect. A perfect analogy. Yeah. That's a perfect analogy. You have to be able to master something before you can start getting creative with it, and doing away with the with the recommended tools and things like that. It's like you need to learn how to cook first before you start creating meals on your own, like making up your own things. Like, maybe learn how to cook and learn how to season food first, and learn how flavors and food textures and all that work before you start trying to do your own thing. So
and be like truly familiar with it, like to that extent, that extent where it's like second nature. You know how when someone's practicing, you know, how to shoot a basketball, you know, and they never played before, you know, so they got to keep shooting until later on you just shoot automatically. You just have an automatic jump shot.
And it goes in. Yep.
Yeah. You know,
DeRozan, if I shoot it, it goes in.
Like, just kidding. Yeah, right. So, yeah.
So the third one would be the Vocus Magicae, which is the magical voice, which is what we kind of just talked about a little earlier. The vibrating.
I'm sorry, Joe. Can you pronounce that part again? I like that went kind of over my head.
Sorry, my handwriting is pretty bad. It's Vocus. I don't know why that's not an O. That's
okay. It's a B. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Vocus or Voces Magicae.
Okay, Voces. Okay.
Yeah. So the magical voice is what that is. So chanting, vibrating sacred names, even just using words of power in certain spells and things like that. Those things have a lot of energy and power to them, and can be an added boon to any sort of working. Especially in grimoire tradition, especially in a lot of the necrosophic systems, where getting the attention of a spirit is paramount, because without their attention, you're probably not going to get much work done. So using sacred names and things like that to get their attention usually works like a charm. So the Vocus Magicae is pretty important depending on the practice that you're going to be coming from.
If I can interject, I feel like that, sure. That one, I feel like that one is probably like one of your good shits, huh? Like that, like you're kind of like really good at that one, huh?
Yeah, I mean, since I do it almost every day, yeah, I mean,
yeah, like you're really like you're like you can what's the word? I mean, like I don't want to say specialized, but you're like you can hone in on that one really good, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything to compare it to because I practice solo, so I don't have like actual masters to compare my vibrations to their vibrations, or their vibrating sacred names to my vibrating sacred names. I could be doing it way wrong, and I mean, but I get results, so that's what matters at the end of the day.
Like that was the next thing you took the word out of my mouth, because I was gonna just guess and assume that you must either feel really good off of it or get results, like, which is kind of similar, which is like you feel the thing working.
Yes, yeah. The results are results are important. I don't want to say that's the only thing that matters. They are important, but also what's important is how those results come about and where those results come from. Because if you're praying to Loki, but it's not Loki answering your prayer, it's the local land spirit, you might want to know that, because it might not be so important when everything's going right and you're getting what you're asking for. But if that land spirit ever gets pissed off and now it doesn't want to give you what you want, it starts fucking up your life and things like that, you want to know how to fix it, right? Well, you're thinking you're praying to Loki, and you're thinking Loki's the one who's been answering your prayers, and so you're thinking it's Loki who's mad at you. So you go online and you go through your books and you start trying to find things on how to appease Loki, but it's not Loki, it's this land spirit. So now you're doing everything wrong, because the land spirit doesn't care about what Loki wants, it cares about what it wants. So without knowing who who's answering your prayers or your spells or whatever, you can fall into certain traps. So yeah, you don't want that at all. So
yeah, you don't want to be in a setup for sure.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Tight. Yeah, what's number 4 on that on the board?
So number 4 would be timing. So this is the planetary hours, planetary days. So that goes into the occult correspondences that we were talking about before. Knowing about the planetary, days and hours and things like that. And if you want, there's even planetary minutes, but I really don't know anybody that goes that far. Most people do the planetary days and hours, and that's really about it. Again, if you're doing a love spell Friday, if you're doing a spell to, start a business or expand your business Thursday or Sunday, you're trying to, curse somebody Saturday, whatever. So timing can be extremely, extremely important depending on the working that you're doing and how successful you want it to be. Any little extra boost helps. So,
yeah, just how if you want to manipulate something, like in terms of and you're working like say with like water elements, be a good idea. Maybe like Monday, right? Because you feel the pulls and the pushes of it extra more. It's maybe like a full moon or something like that, and it's like extra leverage. You know what I mean for your
exactly,
thing.
exactly. And the fifth one is location. Now, location is number 5 because it's only important if you're doing specific workings, right? So location becomes important with, like, say, for example, you're doing necromancy. Necromancy is better worked, better done in a graveyard than it is at your altar or in the woods or something like that. It's best done at sites of death or where death lives, so to speak, or where there's death energy more so than just regular energy. So doing necromancy, by a lake is fine. If you're, alone and secluded, but it's better to do it in a graveyard or something along those lines. If you were doing some sort of like, I know in ancient times, if you were going through initiation, a place that people would go to prepare and to get their mind and everything ready would be caves. They would go and they would like go into a cave for days on end and like be alone and really get themselves into the mindset of initiation and the mysteries and focusing on the gods or whatever it is. So location becomes important if you're doing specific rituals. For example, if you were trying to maybe get more in tune with the water element, then you might want to, do the ritual near a beach or on the beach or on a lake or a river or a pond or something along those lines, to be more in tune with the aquatic energies and the water itself. Those are the 5: intent, materia magica, the vocis magicae, timing, and location.
Wow. Yeah, dude, it's a trip. Would you call would you consider that list like a paradigm? Is that like, does that fall under that category, or am I not accurate with that?
I mean, I don't know if I would call it a paradigm. It's just my recommended requirements for successful spell work. Depending on who you talk to, it'll change. So I mean, I guess in that way it's a paradigm, but I don't know if I don't know if I would go that far and classify it as a paradigm, because even I can change these, because as I was saying, location isn't really that important unless you're doing specific rituals and spells. That's why it's number 5. So I might, remove that and replace it with something else that I might find or feel is more important than location. So I don't know if I would call it a paradigm.
Yeah. What would you consider as like a general like paradigm, like in a sense, like for Magick?
Paradigms would be like chaos magic or traditional witchcraft or fairy witchcraft. I would say those are like paradigms, where they all might do some of the same or similar things, but they go about it in a different way.
Okay.
That's how I would classify a paradigm.
Got you. Okay, that's cool. Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Good shit. Yeah, dude. Speaking of the whole cemetery thing, how depending on location and what your kind of work you're getting into, it's a trip. So speaking a little personal stuff, so I'm the oldest of like brothers, right? And then but we had a sister, but she didn't make it. Like she pretty much passed away like within, I think, like 24 hours of birth, so like as an immediate baby, you know what I mean? And then so we would like visit her and stuff like that. And I remember like being like a kid I guess like not even a preteen, like a kid still. And I remember I used to like walking around in the damn cemeteries. Like I felt so comfortable, like in the big cemeteries with like all the nice stuff. And then literally just like 5 minutes, away from me, kind of towards the card room where I play at. It's like a cemetery town, like pretty much.
Wow,
And
really?
yeah, in a sense, yeah, it's like a small little. So like there's stores and stuff, but it's mainly like, if I don't know, if you ask me, it's probably God knows how many cemeteries are there. It's like a shit ton, right? And but I always I don't know, I really like the vibe. Like as a kid, like I would walk around and I would feel something. Like I think I could feel spirits or something like that, like as a kid, and I really felt comfortable. And I would just walk there by myself, like when they were doing, like my family was doing their thing down at the main spot. I would walk around and kind of by myself, and I don't know what I was doing, but I was getting something out of it for sure. I've had
interesting, man.
Yeah, very comfortable with that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there is comfort or there is solace in rest and in because that's what the cemetery means. It technically doesn't have anything to do with like, being dead. I believe the original translation for the word cemetery meant like the place of rest. And being that that's where bodies go to rest, it became synonymous with the dead. But I believe, if I recall correctly, it means a place of rest. So I think that there is something calming, or there is solace in rest and in knowledge that the things that are, or the people that are in this place are resting. They're not in pain anymore. They're not hurting anymore. And that is in some ways envious. Not the fact that they're dead is envious, but the fact that they are no longer dealing with a lot of the struggles that we have to deal with is kind of envious, that they don't have to go through that anymore. So I think that might also be something that may have played into what you had going on during your childhood. But I would explore that, man. I would look into that a little more.
I know it's funny because as I drive by, my card room, you drive by a decent amount of that shit. Like my card room is in the very beginning of that town, but I still drive by some stuff like that. And I don't know. Lately, I've been thinking like I feel like maybe like taking a walk around there, like you know what I mean. Even though I don't know, it's really nice. It's like peaceful in a sense. And
it is.
I don't know, like I guess like where like like that phrase "rest in peace." You know what I mean? Like it's like, so like there's some kind of peacefulness there, and I don't know. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. But all right. So I guess I'd like to know about. I want to ask because you recommended for me. I think I think it was the last time, Matt Oren's book, and it was on the Mastering Magic, the spell casting, because that's what I thought I wanted to get. And how far am I in this book? I'm still early in the book because yes, totally, yep, that's it. Because I have another book that I'm kind of splitting up with a little bit, and so how far I'm in the 20%, like something like that, of the book. And I'd like to know what you think in terms of how spell casting and like ritual is tied, or like what their correlation is together.
So rituals, in my opinion, are just bigger spells. They're just more involved, more elaborate spells. And usually their goals are a bit more loftier. Not always. You can certainly do a ritual for mundane things, right? But spells are usually for the mundane, and rituals are for the esoteric, spiritual pursuits. Of course, in a modern sense, that's not so true, but that's how it originally was supposed to have been. Spells are what you did to get, a new lover or a new job or to heal the sick or whatever. Rituals are what you would do to connect to your deity or to your god, to ascend through the spheres, or to walk the the Kabbalistic tree. Yeah. Again, in today's context, you can certainly do a ritual for healing or for love. But most of the time, rituals were used for spiritual pursuits, to get in touch with the spirit, an angel, a demon, a planetary spirit, whatever. or to communicate with the divine. So that would be the difference between a spell and a ritual.
That was a perfect
in both classical sense and a modern sense.
Yeah, dude, that was a perfect answer in the sense that it, like, whatever kind of whatever confusion I had, you just cleared it up so well. I'm not sure if other people could have done it like that, because like all of a sudden I'm like, oh, like I had that aha moment. That's so perfect, right on. Yeah, because I don't know, like it's kind of confusing in a way, but you cleared it up very well. Hell yeah, dude.
Good.
Yeah. I guess earlier we had mentioned the word, like I had said familiar of something, but it makes me think about familiars in terms of like the magical sense, because I don't really know. I'm not sure if there's a thing, like, not controversy, but I'm not sure if different people see familiars in a different light. What are familiars? I'm not really exactly sure what though. I have an idea, but I'm not sure on what.
Sure. So familiars are spiritual allies. They are beings that help you with your magical work. And they tend to only show up when you're doing magical work, or if you call them, but that's really about it. They're not like really helping you in your everyday life. That's more of your spirit guides, or what I like, because that's very new agey. So I like to say, like, the spirits that walk with you are the ones that help you in like your mundane life. Your familiars help you in your spiritual, in your magical life. Now, where there's a lot of issue in our modern world with familiars, you've got witches and people who believe that, like it is on TV, that familiars are animals, and they certainly can be, but that your pet is your familiar. And they usually say things like, "Oh well, whenever I'm doing my rituals, my dog likes to come into my ritual room and sit while I'm, sit by me while I'm, or my cat when I'm meditating likes to sit on my lap while I'm meditating." That doesn't mean that your pet is magical or has any magical connotation to you or anything like that. Familiars in traditionally, familiars were given to you by another spirit. Now, if we're talking witchcraft, witchcraft is born out of traditional witchcraft, which did acknowledge a devil. They do believe in and acknowledge, and in many, many cases, venerate a devil character. And one of the benefits of working with this devil character and getting to his sabbat is he provides you with familiar spirits that he can give, that you can work with, and will help you along your magical path. If we read books like the Goetia right here, we find that there are several demons that give you familiars, everything from good familiars to great familiars. There are several beings in here that offer spirits to you, and which confirms that you don't just go to the pet store and get a dog and he's your familiar. Instead, they are presented to you by a higher spirit. So they are spiritual allies that are supposed to help you in your occult work, but that's the difference between what is classically believed and what is believed in a modern day. Modern day, people think that any animal that you find is your familiar, whereas classically they understood that familiars had to be given to you by another spirit. So
yeah, because I'll like hear a lot of stories about, oh well, my cat was really purring and vibrating when I was doing this, and I mean, I'm like, maybe they were like liking the energy, or like maybe you're like they liked what you were doing, but like you're talking about something completely different, where like they come in specific situations when you're doing certain specific works, and then so it's it's kind of different for sure, so yeah. Oh, okay, good.
Yeah,
because I heard
familiars,
like I wasn't sure.
Yeah. So the concept of a familiar, so I don't want to pretend to know the history of where familiars came from, but it's very similar to the intermediary spirit that we see in a lot of grimoire works. For example, the Virum, the demon Skirlin is your intermediary. Skirlin is the one who you meet before you get to any of the other spirits. Skirlin is the one who will take your request and give it to the other spirits. And then, he's sort of the middleman, sort of the intermediary. And that's kind of, the concept of a familiar. is that when you're doing your magical work, rather than you doing the releasing of the energy into the universe, this familiar takes that energy and takes it out and goes to the universe. Or they take your request. If you're praying to a god or whatever, they take your request and they go give it to the god.
Kind of like a middleman, kind of like a magical middleman in a sense.
Exactly.
Spiritual magical middleman.
Exactly. Yeah. And then just over time, it evolved into they can help with anything, magically. Of course, they can't help with anything, but anything dealing with your occult or spiritual practices.
Yeah. Oh, that's tight.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, so I'm gonna kind of go back a little bit in a sense of like, I think this is one, like the last time we talked, and then the last time we talked, we had our session with
Man of Madim.
Yeah, exactly, with a Quinn, and I think it was that time. It was either that time or the time before. But anyway, so you had mentioned that you like on an astral travel situations that you had encounters or situations where you had like seen you didn't know what to call them, but you just kind of considered them like quote unquote like bad shamans, and then so you would have to do stuff in the astral to kind of like protect or like either mirror stuff back or do things accordingly, and I guess like at that time, like like the stuff is just when it's hitting you, you're kind of like, oh shit, like you're kind of just in oh shit mode, like you're just kind of like, oh whoa, like, and then so but now that I'm here, with time. I want to know more about like what the hell did you see in terms of like how did they look like to you? Because like that was something that I had in my head, but I think it was going on so fast that I just couldn't even ask you shit. That so tell me please like a little bit about that. It's fucking intriguing, dude.
Yeah, so most shamans, when we're traveling in the shamanic journey, if we take on a form other than human, and I can't speak for all shamans, but most of the shamans that I know, and when I'm trying to further my practice and studies in shamanism, whenever I'm reading texts by shamans or by academics, this seems to be the common theme, is that we all tend to turn into animals. So whenever I would see what I would consider a dark shaman or something along those lines, they were always an animal, but they were always like something negative when it comes to animals, or that could be perceived as negative. So like alligators, snakes, big cats like lions, tigers, panthers, things like that. I had one that appeared as like a really angry like monkey. I don't know all my monkey variations, so I don't know what kind of monkey, but he was a very angry monkey of some kind. So yeah, they usually appear as animals, and they try to get you away from you. So it's not like some of them do, but they don't just attack you right up front. Some of them do, but there's no like just out of nowhere you're getting attacked. But they try to influence you. They try to get you to not do what you're doing, or they want to follow you to what you're doing so they can sort of take it. So this happens a lot during soul retrievals. When I'm trying to get lost soul fragments for a client, I've had dark shamans follow me to try to find that soul fragment before I did and take it to empower their own rituals and dark magics. So knowing how to protect yourself, knowing reversal magics, knowing how to shapeshift and move between different realms and even hide is useful on the astral plane.
Sheesh, man.
But yeah,
so you're doing things like going into different realms in the middle of a journey like that, huh? Like
yeah,
like if you feel called to, right? Like
yeah. So when I'm on the astral plane, I tend to find that the way to get to other realms or other dimensions or whatever is just as simple as finding a door. It's just, where are those doors? I find the doors are usually in places where there are what I would consider natural openings. So it's not like doors; it's more like holes, caves, because those things technically or shouldn't exist on the astral plane. There shouldn't be a cave on.
It's funny that you said that because I was thinking cave right now.
Right. Yes. So I don't mean that there shouldn't be caves on the astral plane. That's not a valid thing to say. But what I'm trying to say is that like it's not the traditional door where you open a door and then you step into a portal and now you're in some other realm like it is on TV. It's more like natural doorways, so caves, holes, and most of them are not easy to find. Most of the caves that I've had to go into are underwater. But then that lends into, life comes from water. So if you want to get to another realm or another world of life, you have to go through water. That's how it always came to me. And whenever I'm traveling, there have been times where I've found caves in like forested areas or whatever, and went through them and came out in some other realm or whatever. But most of the time, it's usually underwater or it's holes in the ground that you would have to go into, and then you'll end up somewhere else. So,
wow, damn. Yeah. Like a real life Mario Brothers, where like you go into the warp zone. Wow. So do you have like is there like, should I ask, like, can I ask, is there like a spirit animal that you like turn into, like that you know of? Like,
yeah, I prefer hawks. Hawks because of their eyesight and their flight. If you can fly, that usually keeps you away from most predators or, most negative entities that can't fly. So that just eliminates a lot of beings that I probably don't want to be around or have to watch out for. But if I'm not really trying to run away, but I can if I have to, I'll choose like a big cat. And my favorite is jaguars. Jaguars are my favorite, or panthers. But I prefer jaguars, and I'll usually shapeshift into one of those. And that sort of gives me sort of like this sense of like authority and strength. But you always have to remember that there's always something out there bigger and stronger than you. So they're also pretty agile, pretty quick. So, and they're pretty, just like all cats, pretty lean and can fit in, smaller spaces and things like that. So if I ever do have to get away in jaguar form, I can. So yeah.
It's crazy that you said authority, because in my head, when you said jaguar, I thought of like royalty, like for some reason, like a type of royalty. So that kind of makes sense, like a royal, because that's where you get the authority from, right? And then with the hawk, it's trippy because I have a thing like that's like one of mine. It's funny, like ever since what was it, like a Looney Tunes cartoon where I forget the guy, but that little cute little, he was like, I'm a chicken hawk, and he was like that short little one. You remember that one?
No, I don't remember that.
Where it was that big old white bird, and he was like, "Oh, I told you to do it," and then he would beat up he would beat up the dog, and then the third one was that little one. He was a short little, and he was like, "I'm a chicken hawk," and he was always trying to like be tough, and I always felt like a kindred to that guy. And then
I know Foghorn Leghorn, I think, is the big bird, but I don't remember the little bird.
Yeah, he was like a little one. Like, how there's like Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo, like the little version.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I always had a thing for that. And then it was funny. Yeah. Like, I went on a Hockett podcast just several episodes ago on an interview, but I always had a thing for that because,
nice.
Yeah, I don't know. I always felt like I had the nose for it. I always felt like they have like a sharpness to them as well. Like that's what I think about with a hawk, like something very keen and like a type of sharpness. So that's pretty dope, man. Yeah. So I remember on one of your talks, I like this analogy because someone had asked you about like because a lot of people are curious of like the difference between working with like angels and demons and like what that vibe is like, or like what the difference is, or like the approach and all that. And like you had given a cool metaphor like of like the mafia and like the government. I thought that shit was like hilarious. Like tell us a little bit about like that, because a lot of people, like, there's a big curiosity to this stuff right now in terms of question.
Yeah, so working with angels and demons or any kind of spirit really, can be extremely rewarding. Both angels and demons can be used and are helpful. An angel can hurt you just as easily as a demon can heal you. Angels are not these cute little cherubim, naked children, or you know, however the Catholic Church likes to portray them on their artwork, you know, little naked babies or whatever with wings and the little Cupid's arrow, you know, they're not like that at all. And demons are not these grotesque, or at least not always. Sometimes they are, but they're not always these grotesque creatures that want the end of mankind and the destruction of your family race. They are and can be extremely helpful, just like an angel can be extremely hurtful. But the differences in working with them, well, so there's a difference in how you should approach them. But I think the question more is in terms of results. How you know, like if I were to ask an angel for help with love, and then I were to ask a demon for help with love, you know, how would that look? So that's when I like to say, so a demon will get the job done and an angel will get the job done. It's how they get the job done that can be a problem or not. So that's when the mafia and the government you know, analogy came in. So I was saying that the demon, they're like the mafia. They'll get the job done, but you might not like how they get it done. Sometimes it might be very strategic, very smart, and it might be exactly what you wanted and everything like that. But most of the time, demons tend to take the path of least resistance. So they don't care who they hurt or what they have to do to get you your wish or your desire, as long as you got your wish, your desire. And you might not like how that might play out.
It's like very direct. It's like
yes.
very direct in a sense, right? So it could be like blunt or whatever, right?
Exactly. So, you know, like for example, I remember when I was first getting into spirit work, I had read Rufus Opus's Modern Goetia Grimoire, which pretty much changed my life when it came to evocation of spirits. And in it, he recounts a story of how he was contacting the demon Bune, who can giveth riches unto a man, amongst other things. And he, from what I recall correctly, he wasn't too specific on how he was going to get the money, so he left it up to the demon. And what ended up happening was his house ended up burning down. And now that seems like a tragedy, right? You know, you lose all your stuff, but you got that big insurance check. So you did a spell for, or you did the ritual for money, and you got the exact amount that you wanted, if not a little bit more. But you lost the house, right? So
burn the house down.
Right. So the demon did the working. He got you what you wanted, but you had to lose something, and you probably didn't like what you had to lose in order to, you know, get it. Whereas an angel will probably also get you what you want, but you might also not like how you have to do it for the angel. You know, the angel might say, okay, I can help you, you know, get 80K or whatever, but you're going to have to pull more hours at work, or you're going to have to go find a side hustle, or you're going to have to, you know, learn to invest and, you know, spend the next 6 months learning how to trade crypto. And then, you know, I can help you, you know, make the 80K. Or, you know, you might have to, say you might have a relative who's sick, and, you know, they might have a will or something like that. And they might have to go in order for you to get that money, you know, so, and you might not like that. So it just depends on how they approach getting the work done, is where the differences in working with angels and demons come into play, at least at the results level. There is obviously a different way to approach an angel than you would a demon and any other type of spirit. But when it comes to results, it's mostly along the lines of how they're going to accomplish your goal. So
it seems like the angels are very like about the journey type of thing. You know what I mean? Like it's
yeah, they want you to do it.
But they want to, like, they're all about like all these steps.
Yeah, they're very by the book. You know how, like, you know, people say we gotta do this by the book. They're very by the book. They're very, you know, like, there's rules set out. Let's follow these rules and let's get it. Whereas demons are like, if we can cut corners and also still get the same result, why not cut corners and get the same result?
So. Yeah. It's funny because like in the shed, whenever I roll up, you know, my little herbals, how you call them, I have two different types of papers, right? I have like the regular raw, like the regular papers, and then I have these other ones that are like these zigzag ones, and then they're called.
I don't like zigzag.
Yeah, like they're just all these old ones, but the reason why I bought them is they're called cut. What are they called? They're called like cut corners. So like the edges on them are like cut.
Oh, yes.
Like they're extra thin, so it's supposed to like go quicker. So it kind of makes sense. Like one is a quicker one with the cut edges, and then the other one is more like the original classic-y way.
Yeah.
So isn't that funny? It even works for papers,
Perfect. Perfect analogy.
Yeah. It makes me think about like the poker room too, like the card room, because you got like different player profiles, and on one extreme end, you have different types, but on an extreme end, you'll have what you call maniacs. And some of these maniacs, they're very polarizing in their play. And when you see them in the card room, the maniacs either usually have the biggest stack compared to everyone, or they freaking lost. Like I see people dust off $500, $1,000 in like 10 minutes and they got to leave. You know what I mean? Wow. Because they're maniacs. Yeah. And then so I see that's kind of maybe more like the demon way, where it's like they're cut corners, maniacs, and then it's like very polarizing. And then you have like on the other side of the spectrum, you'll call them like they call them nits, or like for you to understand, like a rock. They'll call them like a rock, where they're very like they're very clamped in and they don't budge, like they don't budge for nothing. And they're, in terms of like in a vacuum, in terms of theory, in a vacuum, they'll lose the least amount, like they'll have the least variance overall, like the least roller coaster ride. But in terms of their winning, it's the least, they have the least net in terms of overall, like in terms of one big hit. Yeah, it's like very steady, very drawn. Like they'd rather play very long game to ensure that you minimize your variance loss. Like they don't want to be bumping around where the maniac is like, well, in order for me to try to get this $1,000, I'm gonna have to risk this 1,000, and I'm just gonna go crazy, and so it's like a different approach, So and then and they call them maniacs because in poker, when you're doing things by the book or like sound strategy, they call it like, oh, you're being in line. You're in line right now. And the maniacs are obviously not in line. And they call them, hey, you're getting out of line right now. And then so it's a matter of trying to find when the maniac is getting out of line. And that's when you can take advantage of it. So it works. It's funny how that shit is. But yeah, they're very polarizing, and they're feared. Like the maniacs and the polarizing players, they're feared at the table for sure, because if you go against them, your whole stack could probably be in jeopardy in 1 second, compared to if you go with a rock, that he's not going to put you in these crazy situations.
Exactly.
I mean? Yeah. That's hella funny. But all right, so I guess I want to start to wind down a little bit here, but I'm curious into knowing, because I know you're like a hermeticist, like you talk about that. And then I have a couple of books that I have on my thing that I'm gonna that you recommended before that is next on my list.
Good.
Right now I'm working on these 2, and so I'm already splitting that. But next I want to these 2 that you had kind of recommended. I want to know, like, I guess, like, what is it about hermeticism that drew you? Is there like some core things that make you like kind of like be about that stuff? Like, if you could share that with us.
Yeah. So what sort of drew me to hermeticism is, I guess, its close relation to Christianity. I grew up Baptist Christian. And even while studying the occult, I was still going to church and things like that, because I kind of had to. I'd lived with my parents, so I really had no choice until I turned 19 and I got a job that prevented me from going to church. They wanted my rent money more than they wanted my me to go to church, so they were okay with me not going to church because of work. But anyway, and when I left Christianity, I still I left the religion, or I left the church, but I still had a lot of belief in like God. And I did believe that there was a Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. excuse me, and I believed that there was a way to get back to God, and it's just I didn't necessarily agree that the Christian way, or at least the modern day Christian way, was the right way. But I was still connected to Christianity because of grimoire tradition, which uses the Abrahamic deity. So for a long time, I didn't know how to reconcile my desire to want to practice magic, but also to be as close to original Christianity as I can probably get without being Christian, because they don't, practice magic or occultism. And that's when I started studying the Greek magical papyri and started hearing things about Hermeticism here and there. So I looked into it and found out that it's pretty much, it's very Christian in its beliefs. I mean, if I'm going to be honest, I would probably call it pagan Christianity. It's very Christian.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very Christian in its structure and its setup when it comes to how it views the world and things like that, and it's a cosmological view. So that's what really drew me. And then I found out that it's essentially Christianity, but allows me to practice magic. So that's sort of what drew me in. And then as I began to study and practice, I found that it, to me, made a lot more sense than Christianity. So yeah, that's kind of what drew me and why I decided to fully pursue it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up like in religion too. Like I was a freaking altar boy in elementary school for a hot minute, and I was in that, that kind of thing. And
yeah,
I don't know. And like, there's a lot to it, man. Cause I was into, like, just some years ago, dude, I was in the A Course in Miracles Kool-Aid, which has a lot of these tones of all that stuff. And it's a trip because I've had like what people call like Christ consciousness things, you know what I mean? Like through I guess pretty much like through like Reiki really helped this out in a sense, I think for me. But but in a sense, I just think it's just energy, you know what I mean? And it's not even, I mean, you can call it Reiki too, but just how you were just saying, like in the beginning, we're talking about manipulating energy. It's just Reiki. It's just like, to me, that's just like dealing with Reiki, like chi.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And then so I've had a thing for that too. And then the whole thing about, I guess like when I felt like my biggest moments, in a sense, it was the moments of like this crazy oneness that I cannot duplicate, where it felt like I was the same one character as everyone, and it's like we had the same base. And so like it was like a trip. And then so I was like, oh my God, it's like there's really one character in a sense, like one creation. And then so I have this affinity, like this thing for that too. And then so
nice, man. Explore that.
I'm all about that. Yeah, so that's why now it's like I'm ready to, like, I can talk about that A Course in Miracles thing, because I was in it so much, but now that I separated myself from it, I can still talk about there's like the goodness in it. Like there's good things in it. It's just that you don't want to drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, no, you definitely don't want to drink the Kool-Aid.
It's good to like, imagine if it was a Kool-Aid packet, like I'm good with like reading the ingredients, and I can learn from reading the ingredients, but I just don't want to put it in water and make a solution from it and drink it, like
exactly.
I'm kind of drawing the line there, because at that point I was like chasing my tail. But I think to know what the ingredients are and to be able to read them without opening up the packet, I guess that's kind of where I'm at with things in terms of like my balance or something like that, because I'm trying to be open-minded. Yeah, because I noticed
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, because I noticed I was like closing myself off in ways, like once I got deeper into that other stuff. And yeah, because I'm all into, like, I love, obviously this mystical cultic shit. So it's like I'm just trying to like I think there's nothing wrong with learning,
Not at all. Not at all. I learn new things every day, every single day.
Yeah, and so that's probably why we get along. That's probably one reason why. Because I'm telling you, dude, a lot of people here, man, that I observe, they don't give a fuck about learning. They don't care. Like, they're like, okay, well, I got my job, right? I got my career, right? Like, why would I have to learn? Like they're like that, and it's like, to me, it's like freaking hard to fathom this shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. But that's what you see a lot. And then people, I guess, I don't know. I guess people just want to maybe run away in a sense and want to find something else. And, like maybe there's something in them they want to run away from. And so maybe that's why. But
I don't know. I feel like people just want things to be easy. They just want things to be handed to
convenient
them.
or something, huh? Is that
Yeah.
what it is?
And when they have to work for it, they don't want it, especially when it comes to spirituality, because you have to work for everything else in life. So they feel like spirituality should be easy, right? But no, you have to work for everything else in life, including spirituality.
Yeah.
Like if you need to work towards anything, it would be getting back to God. So I don't know why people think that should be this instant, thing, but it's not. So.
Yeah, man. It's like yeah, like that's the work, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like for me,
it's called the great work, not
yeah.
not the great wish or the great desire or the great meditation. It's called the great work. You have to do work.
Yeah, just how recently, lately, like one of my main themes is like realizing the investment, like the privilege in the investment that we get to decide on, right? And then and then that's where like I keep coming back to. I'm like, oh, it's like in the relationship. You know what I mean? And then yeah, and then I've been on that shit too, like that. Yeah, because
nice, man.
Yeah, it's like, well, because I guess a part of me, I don't know. I mean, from this life and maybe before, like I'm used to like having to grind, like you have to put in the work, like you have to grind, you like the journey part. Like I embrace the journey, and I'm humble enough to know that okay, like I might not be an expert or I might not be the best at this, but at least I'm like willing. Like that's step one, and then step two is that I'm like I'm I'm in it, and I'm trying to see it to the end. You know, so then at that point, I'm like, okay, well, whatever. At that point, that's the journey. You know what I mean? So here I am. You know what I mean? And so yeah, right on, bro. Good shit. I appreciate you coming on, dude.
Of course, man. Of course, man. I love coming on to the the Uncanny Mystical Minds podcast, dude. It's it's always a good time. It's always a trip to talk to you.
Oh yeah, good shit. Yeah, next time we'll get Quinn on. The next time
dude.
We'll do a trio, because that shit was fun too. It's really nice to like have things bounce off like that. You know what I mean? Because you guys are different but similar, so that shit gels. You know what I mean? So it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, and if you have an interest in learning more about Hermeticism, there is a creator who I go live with on TikTok every Wednesday, 9 to 11. His name is Alchemic Mason. I think he would be a good guest for your show.
Cool.
He can talk about. He's not really into magic per se, but he can talk about Hermeticism and even Freemasonry. He's a Freemason, and also alchemy. So those are like his three topics that he can go on and on and on and on and on about. So
alchemy sounds dope.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I'm sure. Like, does he have like a lot of philosophy type of stuff too, or?
Yeah. So when it comes to Hermeticism, yes, because it is a philosophy. So in terms of that, and in terms of Freemasonry, he might have some philosophic point of views, but Freemasonry doesn't try to impose any sort of philosophical view. You should have your own when you come into Freemasonry. But when it comes to alchemy, he is both into the physical aspects of alchemy as well as the spiritual aspects of alchemy. He can get that pretty deep.
I don't think I follow him, so I'll have to check that shit out later on.
Yeah, man, check him out. And if you're ever, around on Wednesday nights, around 9 p.m. Eastern time, which I think is like 6 or 7 p.m. your time. 6.
Yeah, 6.
We're live around that time, and we're like live together like this. There's 2 screens, and we're just we do a reading of the Corpus Hermeticum, which is this text here. We do a live reading of this. We just got done chapter 14, so next week so there technically is no chapter 15 in the Corpus. My edition is a little different, so mine does have a chapter 15. So technically next week could be chapter 16.
Sick, dude.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna look into that.
Yeah, man, check him out.
Yeah, the alchemy thing is that's definitely up my alley. I definitely yeah, with energy, just how the energy manipulation. I feel the alchemy is right there with it. They're hand in hand for sure. So yeah, I'm all
check him out, man.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. Real quick, tell the people freaking, you know, where they can find you. Tell them about like, your channel and all that shit. So yeah, let them know.
Yeah, so you guys can find me over on TikTok. That's where I post most of my content. TikTok under the Mystical Rebel. I'm the same name everywhere. I also have a YouTube channel also under the Mystical Rebel. That's where I post my long form stuff. So like my 2 hour long videos, my live streams are up on there. I have a website /blog that you can find me on, where you can catch my musings and my random thoughts about the occult, or, you know, certain occult or mystical topics. That's themysticalrebel.com. And also on there, I offer some services. If you just click on the services link, it'll take you to my Stan account, where you can see what services I offer and book any readings or service offerings or consultancies that you guys might be interested in. So,
oh yeah, good shit. Man. Nice. Appreciate you coming on, dude.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah.
I love being on the show, and I can't wait for the next one.
Hell yeah, dude. Yeah. Fuck yeah. We'll fucking rock it out. Yeah. Excellent. Appreciate you, dude. And then I will see you, and I will see you soon. I'll talk to you very soon. Thank you guys for coming on. Appreciate you guys. That's another episode of Uncanny Mystic Minds. And we will see you guys sooner than later. All right. Peace.
Thanks, guys. See you later.